Hello. Hi. Sorry I'm a bit late. I just came into the basement where I have my green screen and turned the lights on, and the bulb blew. Uh, so I had to go find another one, and then I got another one. And this isn't very interesting, but I was screwing it in, and I left the light switch on. So I got a bit of a shock when it turned on as I screwed it in and dropped it. And of all the places to land on the carpeted floor, it landed on my desk. So in the corner of my desk at the moment is a load of smashed glass, which is possibly a really good euphemism for Brexit in some way. It's like I just made a bad situation much worse. Oh no, actually, that's a bad example for Brexit, because Brexit, we've made a good thing. We just made it bad for no good reason other than, I don't know, fish. So who have we got today? We've got Alexander Morgan. Hello, Alexander. Alexander's one of my patrons, so thank you very much for watching, Alex, and supporting me. I've got Too Much 77 there, and they're both on YouTube. I'm hoping this is going out on all different channels. I tried to schedule it, but I ran into trouble, so I don't know if this is actually going through as the scheduled program or just going as a different one with almost the same name. But when you spend like all morning trying to sort this stuff out, it's yeah, it can be problematical. Is there anyone out there in Facebook land who would like to say hello? Just leave a comment and should pop up on the screen over here, which I can't see. We've got Midori Magma, who's on Periscope on Twitter, saying hi. Hi. And Bruno saying, "You got this." Oh, I think that's supposed to be an emoji. It's the way "you got this" emoji. It's like the kiss of death, isn't it? It doesn't matter if it's a game show, if it's the crystal maze, if it's the floor is lava. If someone says, "You got this," or "We got this," they invariably die. It's a bit like in a movie. If someone says, "Run," somebody's name, "run," they always die. If they say that line in a movie, whether it's Obi-Wan, run, Luke, run, whether it's Bambi's mum, run, Bambi, run, or whether it's Forrest Gump with Jenny saying, "Run, Forrest, run," yeah, she ends up brown bread by the end of the movie. You know it's going to happen because they say, "Run." So Tyler Durden in Fight Club, who takes the mick out of Jenny saying it, and then he turns out to actually be a figment, oh no, of someone's imagination. Oh, am I ruining a 21-year-old film? And am I ruining your life now by reminding you that Fight Club is actually 21 years old? Oh my God. Okay, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how it's going with the Brexit deal. I was also mulling the idea of doing a history hour, since James O'Brien's just finished doing Mystery Hour. I didn't listen to the end of it. They were talking... apparently I'm live here but not on YouTube. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? Maybe I should do some housekeeping while I'm doing this. But yeah, events, let's have a look. Now, what might happen now is the whole thing might turn off and no one might be able to see me. Let's delete that event, delete the event, yes. Okay, schedule an event, right, back to the live stream, which hopefully is streaming. I can't see. I've got a bit rate. God. See, I tried to do something different today. I tried to set it up so there was actually a... oh, there you go, I just popped back up. I tried to set it up so there was a thing saying it'll be at 1, and then at 1 o'clock it would magically come on the screen, but that didn't happen, and I was faffing around for 2 minutes, and I've just basically made a new video, I think. The preload lunk froze, but there's another. Well, that'll be it then. Yeah, don't do a preload tomorrow. It's just here at 1, okay? Whether you're on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, just be on my channel at 1 o'clock and I'll pop up. What I'll do tomorrow, actually, is I'll try and put on a test screen 5 minutes before I actually start, so we've got a chance to adjust our wellies. Right, so yeah, as I was just saying, after James O'Brien's Mystery Hour, I was thinking of doing History Hour, where we explore some of the darker moments of history, not just British history, but history around the world. If you fancy doing that, feel free to leave a comment about some part of history that you'd like to talk about that doesn't get as much public airing as it should. There's a brilliant book by James Felton, the comedian, on Twitter, called 52 Times Britain Was a Bell End, and I really recommend it. If you haven't got it, maybe put it on your wish list for Christmas, but it does it does make a good case for the ridiculousness of many things that Britain has done in the past. Alex Green says hello again. Hello. Malik Gibbons saying watching live on YouTube. Yeah, so we're getting there. I think we're getting there. Here you are. So yeah, last night Boris Johnson and our chief negotiator Mikhail Frost went over to Brussels for some reason for a photograph. They went and had a photograph, and our Prime Minister looked like an unmade bed, as he always does. And yeah, I was so proud. And I take issue with the fact that people say, oh yeah, he was a good mayor of London. He was a good mayor. No, he didn't. He took credit for what other people did. He wasn't mayor of London when London got announced as the next place that the Olympics was going to be. But he was the one there in the Bird's Nest Stadium in 2008 at the end of the Beijing Olympics who took the baton from the mayor of Beijing, or whoever it was who gave him the baton. And it was just embarrassing. I was embarrassed then. 12 years ago, I was embarrassed by this dishevelled, what would you call him? A bluster, oh, I can't say that word. This dishevelled scumbag, let's just call him a scumbag, who represents everything I hate about the class system, the privilege, this sense of entitlement that a certain segment of the British population have. I'm sure there's people all over the world, in other countries who feel similar ways, but I don't have to deal with them on a daily basis. So this guy was given the baton for the Olympic Games, and I remember thinking at that moment, watching that footage, I thought, what a bloody embarrassment. And at that time, I had no idea just how embarrassing the reign of terror that Boris Johnson's premiership would bring, or the fact that he would actually one day be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Bluster clown, yes, John, that's what I meant to say. Alex Green is saying, getting far too angry reading Twitter today. Is that because of the people who are saying that it's all going to be a disaster? I'm pointing it out again for the nth time. Or is it the people who are like now saying, oh, well, we know it's going to be a disaster, but we always knew that. We voted for this. We voted for this disaster. We want it to be a disaster. Yay, disasters. I don't know. When are we having the next anti-Brexit march? That's from Peter Zurich. I would say, right, what I'm going to do, right, I'm just going to quickly look. Hope this doesn't mess up the feed or anything. Usually when I touch my computer, it just ends in awfulness. Right, Saturday. Let's say the second Saturday in March, okay? So that's the 13th. March the 13th. We'll have a march, okay? Is that all right? Peter, we'll do that? Yeah, good. Get it organised. All you have to do a march, really, is inform the police. You don't actually have to do anything. You liaise with the police. You have a right to protest on the streets. The only thing is, I want to leave it until after COVID's over, because I don't want anyone contracting COVID and dying because we're protesting Brexit. But I mean, an anti-Brexit march, you couldn't call it that, because obviously Brexit has happened, or it's happening, and it will continue to happen. I suppose you could say we hate this stuff, but I think it needs to be the rejoin, hashtag rejoin EU, and we all go and march and we just say, look how terrible it was. We said it was going to be terrible, and it is terrible, because anyone with half a lick of sense could see it was terrible. At least 48% of the country has a lick of sense, which is very heartening. And also nearly 3/4 of young people have a lick of sense, which is very encouraging for the future. That gives me hope. March the 13th, yeah. Sounds good to me. Come on, let's go down to London. We'll get it done. Sounds great. Let's go for it. All right, I'll put things in place. Doing a march is an absolute bloody nightmare. One of the problems that we had with the Remain campaign was occasionally we'll do a march, and this happened twice in Manchester, and someone else would want to do a march on the same day, and we were pretty much on the same page, but they didn't want to march together for whatever reason. And back in I think it was 2017, it might have been that early. Back in 2017, there was a march in Manchester in the September or the October, and there were two anti-Brexit groups that were organising marches on the same day. And so we ended up, well, no, one was doing a rally and the other one was doing a march, and they didn't sync up. So we didn't march to the rally. We marched till we got halfway up Princess Road. Then we stopped, and everyone had to sort of just make their way in dribs and drabs across Manchester to near where I think we were near the cathedral is. I was just like, What? Why are we? Anyway, the one that's more pertinent to me was the time, was the time that I was I was helping Manchester for Europe organising their march last year at the Tory party conference against the Tories, and we had this march organised, and it ended up being on the same day as a Labour group called the People's Front Room or something, the People's something, the People's Assembly, that's it. And they didn't want to team up. They didn't want to team up, and it just broke my heart because we're all on the same side, and they're like, yes, but you do not understand the veneration we have for Saint Jeremy, Saint Jeremiah. He is the most beautiful and elegant man who ever lived. He hasn't got a racist bone in his body, you know. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's because a brain isn't a bone. Anyway, so yeah, and that was a big problem as well. So I think that if we do a march on the 13th, I think the main thing we need to do is make sure that no one else is marching on the same day who would otherwise join our march. But yeah, that would be a good idea. Let's do it. Let's put that date in the diary. Why not? We'll march from Hyde Park to Parliament Square. That's a good route. It's a good route. It's a nice walk. Hope it doesn't rain. Johnson wasted so much money as Mayor of London, but because City and pounds, nobody noticed. Yeah. Well, he wasted £50 million of taxpayers' money on an invisible bridge, the Garden Bridge that never got built. Just on the planning stage, he spent £500,000 on a website. £500,000 on a website. Now, as someone who has personally constructed 27 websites, not been paid for any of them, I don't think. No one should be paid that kind of money for making a website. It is a ridiculous amount of money for a freaking website. And I assume that maybe it had some like gorgeous 3D renderings of this bridge, but surely that would have been done in AutoCAD when the designers of the bridge designed the bridge. So why would that be included in the price of the website? I can't get my head around it. I really can't. He also he spaffed a load of to use his own parlance, he spaffed a load of money up the wall, building a weird crushed helter-skelter thing outside the Olympic stadium in what's it called? Stratford. No, not Stratford. That's where Shakespeare comes from. That place where they had the Olympics. He built this big thing that looked like a helter-skelter, but it looked like a sort of crushed helter. It looked like a bit of a giant transformer that had fallen from the sky and was slightly crushed and over to one side. And he spent millions on it, and it was pointless. He also spent millions on the cable car. There's the Emirates Skyline or whatever it's called that goes across the Thames. Another useless spaffing of money up the wall. This is because Boris Johnson is a man who doesn't know what money is. He doesn't understand money. He calls earning £150,000 a year, which is more money than I can imagine ever earning in my lifetime. He says that is chicken feed. He describes it as chicken feed. He's never had to scrabble down the back of the sofa to find 20 pence to put in the meter to keep the lights on. And he will never, ever know what that's like. And so what do you expect? He doesn't respect money in the same way that we don't respect money that's given to us. If you work for your money, you will eke out everything you can from that money. You will make that money go further. You will invest it or spend it on the things that you want. Whereas if you win it or someone gives it to you, it doesn't have the same. It doesn't have the same emotion attached to it. Of like, I had to work to get this, and I'm going to use it now to actually make my life better in some way, or maybe just keep yourself alive. And he's never had to deal with that. He's had everything paid for his entire freaking life, and that's why he's so bad at his job, because he's a man absolutely bereft, like Trump. He's bereft of empathy. He cannot envisage what it's like to live on the breadline. He can't envisage what it's like to have no home or be trapped with an abusive partner and fearing that if you leave them, then you'll have nowhere to live and you'll end up in some rat-infested hostel, maybe with your children, maybe not. He's got no idea. He doesn't even know how many children he's got, for God's sake. But any kind of idea that this man might have some empathy, I'm sorry, is just shot to shit by the fact that he left his wife who, when he was living in Islington, which he mentioned in Prime Minister's Question Time yesterday, he accused Keir Starmer of being from Islington, when actually Keir Starmer's from quite a modest background. His dad was a toolmaker, his mum was a nurse. They didn't pay for his education, although he did go to quite a posh school. They did not pay for his education, unlike Boris Johnson, who went to Eton. And he made this crack about Islington. While he was living in Islington, Boris Johnson this is, with his wife who was being treated for cancer. He was not just having an affair while she was being treated with cancer. He left his wife who was being treated for cancer to be with his mistress. Wow. No empathy. No idea of putting yourself in other people's shoes. And this is something that I feel should be a requirement of being a leader. I find it abhorrent that there are a few jobs that you can literally just do with no training whatsoever. There's very few of them. I mean, maybe a menial task where you've got to move one lot of things to the other place. I don't know if you need any training for that, but maybe you need to know how to pick things up so you don't do your back in. Trying to think, prostitution, do you need training for that? Well, I suppose you get away with it if you're just good looking enough, but I don't know, maybe. Being a parent, you don't need training for that, although possibly, arguably, you should have. Don't know about making it compulsory, but certainly if you want any help off the state, like family tax credits, I think it should be contingent on the fact that you've actually done a parenting course before you've had a child. And I'm not just saying that for women, I'm saying that for men as well. But then you've got politicians, and to be a politician, you need no qualification whatsoever. No qualification. Nothing. You don't need to know shit. And that is just bonkers. I think at the very minimum, you need to have some kind of grounding in politics. You need to know how it works. Maybe have a test like you have a driving test. It's not necessarily having to have a degree in politics or an A-level or anything, but just so you know how the system works, for God's sake. But no. And these absolute cretins and dickheads become politicians. And some of the worst lot are the ones, apart from the Tories in government at the moment, but councillors, Tory councillors, and Labour councillors, to be honest with you, an unpaid post. You don't get paid for being a councillor. You get paid to advise councillors, but you don't get paid to be a councillor. You get like $6,000 a year for expenses, and you get to make decisions that affect the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Oh, okay, whatever. Anyway, Plum Duff says, at least Trump will sod off soon. Yes. I totally agree. Plum Duff says, hi, pal. Hi. Well done, Graham. March 13th, starting in Hyde Park. See you then. Right. I did this, like I was saying, so last year when the People's Vote protest was, it was getting up to when we were supposed to be leaving with no deal at the end, no withdrawal agreement, even worse than no deal, at the end of March last year. And we all crying out for someone to organise a march in London. And there was no point in us, grassroots Remainers, organising it, because we knew the big boys, the posh people in the Millbank Tower at People's Vote, who no one ever met, would organise something at some point. But I was getting really frustrated because I didn't know what date it would be. And I live up in Durham at the moment, and the train to London is like £140 return. I'm not even kidding, £140 return. Oh my God, I think I've flown to Thailand for less money than that. £140. But yeah, they one way. It was, and so I put on my Twitter account, hey everyone, I'm going to be in Hyde Park on Saturday the 21st of March at 12 o'clock with my sandwiches to protest against Brexit. Please come join me, bring your sandwiches. As a bit of a joke, right? Because no one had announced a march. No one had said there was going to be a march. And I thought that there should be. Anyway, I get an anonymous message from the People's Vote Twitter feed. Not like, hi, it's Duncan here, or Gerald, or whoever was speaking to me. How you doing? It was just like, please remove that tweet. We haven't announced the march yet. And I'm like, I'm not announcing a march. I'm saying I'm going to be in the park with me sandwiches. And what? Am I working for you? Are you paying me? Am I a PR spokesperson for the People's Bloody March? So that was the People's Vote, sorry. So that was the only time that I got to speak to the People's Vote people. They never allowed me or Adam or anyone else that I did the Three Blokes with, or any podcast like Kieran, I think, introduced he was the first speaker at the first public People's Vote rally. And after that, they just ignored him. And Kieran is arguably one of the best people to have fighting against Brexit, because he's not posh. He didn't go to some posh school. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He has lived experience of crossing borders into the EU and around and inside the EU. And I couldn't think of a better person to come and talk. But instead, we ended up with some celebrities and some politicians who just basically stood up and went, Brexit's a bad idea. And we're all standing there like a million people going, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks for pointing that out. So it was always a little bit frustrating. So yeah, I might get told off by somebody for saying let's have a march and giving a date and giving a time. But you know what? There's only 5 of us. You know, what do they say about great trees grow from acorns or something? The closer we get to January the 1st, the more depressing it's becoming. Yeah, Plumdove, I am absolutely, and I'm just getting more and more angry. I've got a headache. I've got like a stress headache at the moment. Just absolute fury over what's happening and what's being allowed to happen, and the blithe cruelty of it all, and the way that the culties of Brexit, they're like a death cult. They're like an end of world death cult. They're like, yes, let's bring on the end of what? Britain? So my EU citizenship is already in the bin. And within 2 years, I'm going to lose my British citizenship, as will everyone in Britain. No one will be British anymore as a nationality. You will be Scottish or Wanglish, or just English, I guess, if Wales decides to go its own way, which it very well may do. So you can stay with England and Westminster and the crooked Tory party that's spaffed £21 billion up the wall this year alone on coronavirus stuff for their mates. Now, jobs for the boys, 21 billion, 12 billion of that went on a test and trace system that didn't work. That was 100% ineffective. At the highest death toll in the whole of Europe. And yet people are like still, yeah, the Tories, they're great. I love the Tories. Aren't they brilliant? So yeah, whether Wales wants to stay attached to us when it could just, I don't know, become its own country, rejoin the EU, allow imports and exports to flow freely through Anglesey to Ireland, down from the southern coast to France. Yeah, just saying. So yeah, I'm going to have my EU citizenship taken from me, then my British citizenship, and then my Wanglish citizenship over the next few years, and then eventually I'll have to settle with English, which I don't really want. I'd much rather be Irish, but unfortunately my forebears left Ireland too early. They should have stayed there longer, so I could say, well, one of my grandparents was Irish, give me an Irish passport. Which is, I think, what the children of a lot of Brexiteers have done. In fact, I think the adult children of Nigel Farage, not his German ones, but the ones he had with an Irish woman, I think they've still got their EU passports. So when they go for a job in the EU, they will get preferential treatment over you or I, because we don't have EU passports, and therefore we will have to have a work permit to work, which costs money. And as I keep saying, they can say no, which they often do. Did Akori do website design? Yes, probably just gave it all to her. He loves the White Elephant Project, emphasis on the white, because he's a racist as well. Johnson is the type of man who knows the cost of everything but the value of nothing. That is very well put, the freckled puny. I'm not sure even the first bit of that saying rings true. Yeah, he doesn't even know the cost. It doesn't matter to him. It doesn't matter at all to Boris Johnson or Michael Gove or Rees-Mogg. They've been brought up in this arrested development state. There's a thing with children and the development of children that a lot of educational psychologists talk about, and it's about boundaries. Essentially, children will be as naughty as you allow them to be. And if you don't tell them there are boundaries, you don't tell them there are things that they're not allowed to do, they don't think that they're loved. I mean, they are probably, but there's something in there, not like consciously, but like somewhere in their subconscious. They think, I'm not loved because why isn't mummy and daddy looking out for me? Obviously, you can't form a complex idea like that at that age, but your brain's a very, very, very complex machine. It's the most complex thing we know of in the universe. Imagine that. Your brain is more complex than actually the universe in which you exist. Wow. The universe is made up of a lot of the same things over and over again, whereas your brain is absolutely unique and makes thoughts that are yours and no one else's. It's quite mind-boggling just to think about. But yeah, with these Arrested Development man children that are in charge of the Tory party at the moment, like Matt Hancock, they've never been told no. They've never been told where the boundaries are, where you got to wind your neck in now, or don't do that, it's dangerous, don't do that. And so they just grow up as really horrible adults, just nasty, bullying, blasé, not giving the slightest toss about the feelings or the situation that anybody else might find themselves in. And I think one of the big things that we've seen over the last few years is this deficit of empathy. People just don't seem to care about how their actions make other people feel. Or if their actions make other people feel bad, they feel like those people deserve it because they're not good people. And it's tough. It's really tough. And Johnson was trying to shine a light on Starmer's Islington address. Yeah, exactly. Which is actually in Camden. Johnson, I've said that one. Why are the first 3 vlogs in the full videos not available anymore? I can't put them online. Sorry, I'd love to. Damn, I'm really sorry. I'm just going to apologise about that again. Sorry. Johnson's dad turned out to be a tool maker too. Because he made a tool. I like that, John. Why is Boris even allowed to remain in charge? Because the people love him. The people think he's manna from heaven. He's just like them. He's the guy they want to go for a drink with. And this is a big problem for Starmer, which is that he's a nice guy, but you wouldn't want to go for a drink with him. You wouldn't think, we're going to have a party. Let's invite Keir Starmer around. He's always a good laugh, isn't he? And the thing with Boris Johnson is he always comes across as the good time guy. He always bigs up bad things. If something's all right, he'll make it sound like it's amazing. If something's dreadful, he'll make it sound like it's all right. And he's very good at that. He is an exceptionally good liar. He's an absolutely incredibly good liar, which stands him in good stead for being leader of the Tory party, put it that way. Leo asks me, are you stockpiling food? Yes, I am. And I suggest that anyone watching this does the same thing because the ports are already getting snarled up, so we're going to get into a lot of trouble. There was a guy on the radio this morning, on James O'Brien, who called in to say, don't worry about medicine, don't worry, it'll be fine, because they're going to have this reciprocal agreement, and basically any batches of medicine that's been tested in the EU are going to be allowed in the UK. And James O'Brien's like, okay, cool, but how does it get in? Oh, well, we'll fly it in, I'm like, oh, for God's sake. So flying, basically, the amount of, think about the amount of containers you can fit on a 747. It's a handful. It's not that many. Think about how many containers you can fit on a post-Panamax container ship. It is lots and lots. 17,000 containers, I think, 20-foot containers, or TEUs. Saying that we're going to get all our medicines in for everyone in the country by flying it in is... That was a tall order when they were just trying to fly stuff into Berlin. And Berlin was a lot smaller, well, half of Berlin. It was a lot smaller than what Britain is. That would Boris bondage. Oh, I don't want to think about Boris and bondage. What? Do a parody of Phil. Hi, I'm Graham. I don't like talking about politics, but it's important, so here we are. Okay. Hi, I'm Graham. I don't like talking about politics, but here we are. There you go. It's just again in a Scouse accent. If you're watching this, hi Phil. The new Tory MPs lack a knowledge of parliamentary procedure. Akbar. Is this March 13th thing serious? If so, I'll book off work today. Roger, I'll be there. I'll be there. I don't know if anyone else will be there. I haven't made any arrangements. I haven't spoken to the police in London to make sure that it's okay, but I can do. But the only proviso I will say is if we haven't got a handle on COVID by then, if the vaccine doesn't work or it hasn't been rolled out to enough people, then I'm not doing it. I'm only doing it if it's going to be safe to do it in the old traditional way of getting loads of people together and marching down the street. So that's my only proviso there. But otherwise, yeah, I'm free on March the 13th, and I'll be happy to go down to London and do a march against Brexit. I think it needs to be a rejoin march, so it'll be the rejoin march, and we can make all the really good arguments for rejoining, which are just like, what's our argument? We just look around and wave our hands and go, look! Or maybe just take a picture of ourselves in the supermarket with empty shelves behind us going, look! Or maybe take a picture of ourselves dying in the pharmacy because they haven't got our medicine for the 7th week in a row and going, look! I'm not trying to make light of that because it is a serious matter, and obviously medicines are going to be prioritised, and the hope is that we've got enough stockpiled here as is to get us through. But if I was you and I was on monthly repeat medication, I would conveniently lose my medication this month and apply for another load, just so I've got a month in the bag just in case. I'm off back to bed. Don't do daylight savings all these mental days. Okay, Plum Duff, night. Go to John Danzig's page on Facebook and elsewhere. He laments the fact that the Remain campaign was disjointed. Yeah, it was super just I can't even say that word. So, I shouldn't start drinking so early. This is vodka. No, yeah, it was painfully disjointed. I could wax lyrical for hours about it, and it was really painful to be part of it, but not really be part of it. Me and the other people that were the grassroots campaigners, people like Ben Chambers, Maddie, Mike Galsworthy, tried to be sort of the in-between person between the grassroots and the people in London. And it was just so difficult to get anything together. And it was a lot like herding cats. The biggest problem that I felt was that there was a huge schism in the Remain movement because of Jeremy Corbyn. And again, it's one of the reasons why I hate that man more than I hate all the others put together, and I hate them a lot. But I feel like what we tried to do was sabotaged by people who thought it was more important to push the Corbyn message rather than the Remain message, which we saw when Corbyn went off to Switzerland to give some woman from Brazil or somewhere an award on one of our marches. Another march, he went to Morecambe to pose at the statue of Morecambe and Wise. And one of the marches I remember, Owen Jones, the columnist for the Guardian, who I really, really dislike. I really dislike him. I think he's supposed to be on our side, but his attitude and his excuses and the way he puts himself across just drives me to distraction. He's blocked me on Twitter, so I can't insult him on Twitter, unfortunately. But he tweeted one day when there was a march on in London, and he tweeted that he was on the bus going somewhere to deliver Labour pamphlets in Brighton or something. I mean, don't get me on the details of that, but it just felt like a massive FU to the Remain campaign, trying to make it like it was just a Lib Dem thing, which it definitely wasn't. And I think that really injured it, because you had the sort of Lib Dems didn't want to be with the Labour lot. The Labour lot was split in two between the Corbynites and the old school Labour people. And then you had people who were, perhaps they would be Tories against Brexit, which exists, who were not really welcomed into the fold because they came from a different political background. And yeah, it was just really, really piss poorly managed, and loads and loads of money was given to the People's Vote people, and I don't know what they did with it. If you listen to Ben Chambers on the excellent 16 Million Rising podcast that he does, I think it's every Monday now. He waxes lyrical about this because he's so angry that the Remain campaign took all this money off well-meaning people like you and I, and then did nothing with it, and basically folded the month before the general election, when they had a big Barney about something, and all these names came out in the news of people I've never even heard of before who are apparently working there. I've never met them. And if I hadn't met them and I didn't know about them, and I was a very active member of the Remain community, I spoke at dozens of events and attended dozens of marches. If I didn't know who they were, then what were the rest of us doing? Yeah. I'm angry too. Do you think it will come to blows, i.e. protests and riots? That's from Alex Green. Yes. 19 billion on test and trace to date. That's from Darren Christian, and that's all been blown. All absolutely been blown. Oh my God. Despite Tesco's warning, Rees-Mogg is telling everyone it'll be fine. So Tesco have gone on the record this morning saying that food prices are going to go up by an average of 5%. And if you're Jacob Rees-Mogg, that doesn't matter to you because you still have a nanny as a grown man and you go canvassing with her. I mean, you live in a castle. If you're Boris Johnson, it doesn't matter to you because you're in fact ridiculously rich. If you're Dominic Cummings, it doesn't matter to you. You went to a private school. Your wife's dad owns a castle. This doesn't matter. 5%, what's that? That's nothing. But to people on the breadline, people just about managing, people having to go to food banks, 5% is the difference between eating and not eating. And this isn't just going to be on posh food. It's not just going to be on caviar or whatever posh people eat. It's going to be on the basics. It's going to be on the staples. Yeah, John Danzig does speak a lot of sense. I do like John. Would Johnson get around in? No, absolutely not. No, he would just expect everything. He's one of these people. It's one of those things. Isn't it the paradox of being rich? The richer you are, the less money you're expected to spend. The less money you pay in tax, we all know that, as a proportion of your income. But also, you get given free stuff all the time. You imagine you want to go to a club and you're not really wealthy. You have to pay to get into that club. If you're really wealthy, there's a good chance they will just let you in. If you want some new clothes and you're earning minimum wage, you have to go out and buy some clothes. Whereas if you're already rich and famous, you'll be given the free clothes by Adidas or Nike or whoever. They'll literally give you free clothes to wear, Givenchy or whatever they're called. If you get invited to the Oscars, there's a good chance you're a millionaire. There's a good chance you're a producer or a director or an actor, an actress. You're a millionaire. And yet you're given a Gucci bag. Everyone who goes to the Oscars gets a Gucci bag worth $25,000 with goodies in, like bracelets and I don't know, bracelets and necklaces and tiaras. I don't know what rich people were. So your actual outgoing costs, if you're rich and famous, are a lot less as a percentage of your income than if you're earning bugger all. And there's always, going back to this story of Terry Pratchett's guy who has to buy the cheap shoes, the cheap boots, because he can't afford the expensive ones. The expensive boots the rich man buys, they cost $100 or more pounds or whatever they're called, and he wears them for the rest of his life. He's fine. But the poor man has to buy the cheap shoes, which only last a year. So every year he pays more for he has to buy a new pair of shoes. So over the long term, it costs more. Again, if you use public transport, it costs more money. So to go from where I live to the city centre here is about 10 minutes on a bus. It's not very far at all. And yet it costs £2.40 for just one way. And for 10 minutes on a bus, which is usually just mainly empty. I don't know why they just don't send the minibus, but whatever. Social distancing, I guess. They were before their time. But again, if you can afford a car, because you've got some wodge, then the amount of money you'll spend getting to and from work will be less. If you can afford a house, every time you pay your rent, your mortgage, you're actually going to get that money back. You're going to get that money back with interest if you sell your house for more money than you pay for it, which is what everybody in the baby boomer generation who bought a house and then sold it managed to do. Sometimes to 10 times or 20 times the amount that they paid for it. You have houses that were being sold for £30,000, £300,000 that were bought for 15,000 just literally a couple of decades earlier. So, I mean, yeah, if you've got money, you can make money, and that's the way of it. And if you've got money, you don't appreciate money. I feel, and it annoys me when I hear about these so-called self-made millionaires like Tim Martin and James Dyson, two that really fuck me off, really annoy me the most, because they are both privately educated rich kids who went to a posh privately educated school. Those two annoy me more than Richard Branson, who also went to a posh private school, but Richard Branson was on the side of the Remainers, so I give him a bit of a let on that one. But yeah, he's not a self-made millionaire either. He was born a millionaire and he made more money because he was quite good at making money. But even if you're not good at making money, like Trump, he's filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 6 times, I think. Terrible businessman, but he's still got loads of money. He's got loads of assets. Even though he owes loads of money to the Deutsche Bank or whatever, he's still got loads of money. Oh, great, I'm right under the Heathrow flight path. Oh, God, Chock Sal, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, one of the things that we heard yesterday, they are removing the time directive for truck drivers, lorry drivers in the UK. So they're upping it by 9 hours over a 2-week period, I think it is. So basically you're going to be able to drive for an extra half day each week, which in the middle of winter when it's dark and there's ice on the roads, I want my truck drivers to be as alert as humanly possible, but our truck drivers are going to be able to have less rest than the rest of the EU. Yay, Brexit. Another Brexit bonus right there. David Horton says, I hope we will rejoin one day. David, you're not alone. I do think that we will rejoin. I think that what's going to happen, Scotland's going to have a referendum probably next year. I thought it was going to be a bit later than that, but it's looking like it might be next October to leave the UK. When that happens, Scotland will readmit itself to the EU and will be fast-tracked to membership because it was an ex-member. At that point, I think that Northern Ireland will bail and just say, right, we're just reuniting with Ireland because we can't be bothered with this anymore. We're in the single market, within the customs union. I don't understand why we've got a border with England and Wales, but we won't have a border with Scotland because they'll be part of the EU. So Wales will probably go and rejoin the EU, and that'll just leave England. I think England will have rejoined the EU by the end of the decade. Or it will break up into even smaller constituent parts, because I can't see places like Liverpool putting up with this for too long when they've got a really big port. One of the biggest ports in the UK is in Liverpool in terms of being able to take these massive ships. Yeah, it's on the route there. It's right next to Wales, which will arguably be independent soon, and it's just over the water from it's just a couple of hours on over the water from Ireland. Well, not a couple of hours, about 6 hours. But yeah, the point is that I could see city-states breaking away and saying we want to be part of the EU, but see you later. This is a Brexit-free city, which is something that I'd like some places to adopt. Let's see, we could photograph the inevitable increase in homelessness due to Brexit. Yeah, that'd be worth doing. Jeremy was Alexity, he wanted out the EU. Yes, that was very evident from the start. And people go, oh, you campaigned to be in the EU. I'm like, yeah, so did David Cameron. Yeah, great job they did. Great job. Well said, Graham, says Andrew N. I don't know what I said. I might be reading that, and you might think what I said subsequently was a load of nonsense, and now I've just read well said, so sorry if it wasn't what you meant me to be well said about. John says, you can't stockpile radionuclides for diagnosis and treatment. The time is crucial and the window is very small. It's because of half-life of radioactive material. We have been getting them within 24 hours through the EMA. UK hasn't got the geology to produce them. Yeah, John makes a really good point there. I was talking yesterday about minerals, about bauxite and coltan and these things that we need to make things. Yeah, he's absolutely right about the time that we need to get medicines in. And obviously nucleotides are not just used for cancer treatment, they're used for some more everyday stuff. Like if you, I think one of the things that they do is they put nuclear isotope that goes into your bloodstream so they can check out how your blood's moving around your system or whatever they're checking. And basically, because it's got such a short half-life, it only stays radioactive for a few hours, and then you're safe. You're back down at a normal radiation level, so it's not going to cause you cancer or tumours or whatever. Choxal says the new 16 Million Rising CD is very good. We should all be supporting Ben and all the artists on it. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Ben is one of the nicest blokes that I've met through in my life, actually, but especially through the Remain movement. He's really committed. And he's very good at what he does as well. I'd like to get him on this show maybe next week. I'll try and get him on Zoom and get him actually coming up on the screen, which would be cool. Jim Bob says, hi Graham. Hi Jim Bob. Dan says, hit the thumb up button, hit the like button. So whatever you're watching this on, I don't know if you can on Twitter, but yeah, there's a heart, isn't there? If you can give me a heart or a thumb up or a like or a smiley face or something, that would be great. Thank you. It helps with the the algorithms. Still going on about Corbyn. Yes, sorry. Well, I was talking about the muck up that was the Remain campaign. We did have all the forces against us, but it's got to be mentioned in view of what happened. 5% if Tesco take a hit on the increases. 5%. What do you think of Owen Jones' argument that hard Remainers are in part to blame? The ladder's gone down in my estimation. That's from the Freckle Pony. Well, I've hated Owen Jones for a while now, and so he can't really go down in my estimation. But no, I think he's 100% absolutely idiotically wrong. I mean, he's so wrong. He is wrong at the top of his voice. He is ridiculously wrong. I don't remember the moment when us Remainers were offered the chance to stay in the single market or the customs union. I remember Theresa May's red lines from the start. I remember Brexit means Brexit. I remember the withdrawal agreement being drawn up with no input from me or anyone that I know in the Remain movement. No, it was just drawn up by the Tories. It was the Tories' mess. They owned it. They could have done anything after winning the referendum. They could have said, okay, fair enough. We're going to stay in the single market. We're going to stay in the customs union. But no, they had their red lines. And because of those red lines, we're having a hard Brexit. And that was obvious from the start. And Owen Jones is just trying to cover his own tracks because he's Alexiteer. I don't know if he pretended to be fond of the EU for a moment at the start of it, but he was deeply entrenched in the Corbynite army of denialism, of scapegoatism, of anti-Semitism, or at least excuses for anti-Semitism, for not taking action on it. And he's just as culpable as anybody else in Labour who have allowed this to happen. And then to turn around and say to the very people who were screaming the loudest, we need to stop this. And yes, if it was a choice between a hard Brexit and a soft one and nothing else, I would have picked the soft Brexit myself. But obviously that wasn't on the table. That wasn't on the table, ever. And so for him to say that now is so disingenuous and so dangerous because we're getting enough shit as it is from the crazy leavers who are like, oh, it's all the Remainers' fault. This would have been great if it wasn't for the Remainers. Or what they mean to say by that is reality. But yeah, Owen Jones can, I'll say what I really feel on the 10 o'clock show on Sunday. But he can go and do something to himself. I'll leave the something up to your imagination. And I've got to try really hard to be good at this whole sort of before the watershed time. 19 billion, that's 300 quid for everyone in the UK. Yeah, that was money well spent on absolutely nothing. Where does NI go now? Unification? David Glenn? Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's going to happen. I don't know, because the way things have turned out, if we do get a deal, this wafer-thin deal, Northern Ireland will still be in the customs union in the single market. So they're already in a really good position. They really don't have to do anything after that. I mean, it's upset the DUP that there's going to be a border down the North Sea, down the Irish Sea, which we told them would happen. But yeah, They sided with Theresa May. They propped up her government. They went for this. They thought Brexit was a good idea. So what you reap, what you sow. Yeah, I think that the calls for a border poll, which is mandated by the Good Friday Agreement, will get louder and louder. And yeah, it only takes a poll to show that more than half the population of Northern Ireland want to rejoin Ireland for it to go ahead. There is the question of whether Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, wants Northern Ireland, because it's not like the richest area of the country. It's not like Catalonia in Spain. It's actually quite a deprived area, and it costs the British taxpayer at least £2 billion a year on sort of propping it up to some extent. But then again, $2 billion a year now sounds like very little amount of money compared with how much the government is prepared to just spaff up the wall on shit. Poor people just need to inherit more wealth. Yeah, that would help, Luke. Well, that's the thing. If you're going to say, like rich people do, oh, you should work for your money. No one should be given UBI. No one should be given benefits because you got to work. You got to work. Oh, well, I've had a baby. I'm going to look after the baby. No, that's not work. That's not real work. Well, can I look after someone else's baby? Okay, yeah, that's work. We'll pay you for that. But you can't look after your own baby. That's not work. You need to work for your money. And everyone saying this who's rich pretty much inherited their wealth. So they didn't work for their money. So you say to them, okay, well, let's make inheritance tax 100%. Let's make it against the law for parents to give their children any money above, like, let's say £1,000. Oh, no, you can't do that. Well, no, those people haven't worked for it. They've just got a load of money. The son of the Duke of Westminster, who died a few years ago, he inherited £11 billion. £11 billion. Do you know how much inheritance tax he paid on that? Zero. Absolutely nada. Nothing. Yeah, thanks for that. Would you move to Scotland, David Glenn? Yes. I'm not that far from Scotland. It's only a couple of hours on the train for me from here, and I'm doing I was supposed to be doing work there the last couple of months, but obviously COVID's kind of got in the way of that. Yeah, I'm going to be working there next year, and I really want to help them get independence from England, because I feel ashamed. I feel belittled. No, belittled, that's the wrong word. I just feel this innate sense of shame that we are pulling Scotland out of the EU. We're taking everything that is being taken from my stepdaughters and from myself, is being taken off them in Scotland, and they voted against it. They voted 62% to stay in the EU, and we're taking them out. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Scottish independence this time round has my full-throated support, absolutely. No, it was well said. Thank you, Andrew. Luke Burke says exactly the height of arrogance to assume they would want us back. Oh, we're talking about whether the EU will want us back. This is a tricky one, yeah, because obviously we will have caused them so much and no end of grief by doing what we're doing. I think if they were going to take England back, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, different things, but England, I think there's going to have to be, if I was the EU, I'd make sure there had to be a change in the way that we do things. Bring in PR, make ourselves more democratic, maybe think about doing something different other than the House of Lords. I think the main thing's got to be that the EU needs to change the rules so that if a country decides that it's going to leave, the mechanism for that needs to be a 2/3 majority of the people, because leaving on a 50+1 vote is such a knife edge for a change of a constitution of an entire nation, the change of rights, the removal of rights, the change of citizenship. You lose your EU citizenship. There's a lot of things going on there. So yeah, I think that they will let us back in. I don't think they'll invite us back in, but there'll be some negotiations to be had down the road there. The Trump inherited $400 million from his equally racist and morally corrupt dad, Fred Trump, and still went bankrupt 6 times. That's for Freckle Puny. Yeah, madness, isn't it? Brexit will affect the delivery of the vaccine. We hope not, but we just don't know. And this is one of the things. 3 weeks till we leave, and we don't know. We haven't got a deal. Boris Johnson's saying, why don't you support us on this deal, Keir, to Keir Starmer? And Keir Starmer's like, you haven't done the deal yet, mate. Oh, what am I supposed to do? Sign off on something that I haven't even seen? What world do you live in? For the random, yes. What's a hard Remainer? You're a Remainer or you're not. There are no degrees involved. Well, I think, Stanley, the hard Remainer thing is that idea that you want to go back and you want to join the Schengen zone and you want to join the Euro. So I'm a bit more, these days, I'm a lot more of a hard Remainer. And also, I think back in 2016, when I was writing about the referendum before it happened, my emphasis was very much on what a bad thing it would be if we left. What my journey has been in the last few years has been learning that actually the EU is a really good thing. I don't think it's soft and cuddly like Nick Cohen said yesterday on Twitter. I don't think it's soft and cuddly. I think it's a rules-based organisation that looks after the interests of its members, and I think it does a very good job of that, and so I would like to remain a member. But yeah, I've gone from sort of being anti this thing, which was leaving, to more pro this thing. So I feel now more pro EU than I did before all this nonsense went on. The more I learnt about it, the more, it sounded like a good thing. I'm going to have to wrap up soon, so I'm just going to read the last few of the messages. Hey, Graham, how can Scotland go for another referendum if the government doesn't get the go-ahead for one? The courts? There's a few things they can do, but the main thing is that the Scottish people can get in touch with Joe Biden, who has no love for Westminster. I will tell you that now. And Joe Biden will say, okay, let me give Ursula von der Leyen a call and give Ursula a call. And then they'll basically give the, maybe the Taoiseach of Ireland a call as well. And everyone surrounding the UK, all of the UK's NATO allies will say to them, let Scotland have a referendum. And if Boris Johnson says no, they'll say, well, we don't feel that's democratic of you, and we have ways of making you talk. Well, no, they'll say, basically, that seems undemocratic to us. We're going to put sanctions on you. In which case, Boris Johnson will go, what? But we've already put sanctions on ourselves with Brexit. And he's like, yeah, we're going to put more sanctions on top of sanctions. And in which case, Boris Johnson will be forced to stand down. But I actually don't believe that Boris Johnson is that bothered about Scotland. Just look at his attitude towards it. I think he knows that if Scotland does break away, that means a load more seats proportionally for the Tories in the government in Westminster going forward. So that's a problem. But one good thing that might happen if Scotland leave is it might force a general election earlier. So we might have a general election in 2022 rather than have to wait until 2024. So we will see. We will see. Taking back Greater Yorkshire. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Gordon Ross. Who's Gordon Ross? No, I need to follow Gordon Ross because I'll check him out after this. Would you consider moving to an EU country to escape the nightmare of Brexit? That's from Tracy. Yes, but my family circumstances will not allow it at the moment and might not allow it for several years to come. So I can't. As much as I would like to, I can't. Which is all things being equal, I could be living in Panama at the moment, but I'm not. I'm here. The democratic process to reach a majority for leaving the EU is always dependent on the laws of the country that wants to leave. Yeah. I mean, I think that Scotland's got a very, very, very good case for having another independence referendum, basically because the first referendum, not the first, but the referendum they had in 2014, it was explicitly said that if they left, they would have to rejoin the EU, and Spain would make that difficult because they don't want breakaway republics like Catalonia getting ideas. Which is categorically what the Tory government then went and did. It pulled Scotland against its will out of the EU. So Scotland's got an open and shut case, as far as I'm concerned, for leaving the United Kingdom, or at least having a referendum to leave. Welcome to the world of Boris, population 1. Okay, all right, thanks for that, Anne. Oh, that's Anne in Spain. Hello, the Remain in Spain lot. How you doing? Right, okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and I'll try and actually come online at 1 o'clock. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll just put a test card up for the first 5 minutes so you can tune in so you don't miss the very beginning, and then come on the show. And listen, if there's anyone that you'd like me to talk to on these shows, let me know, and I'll see if I can get in touch with them and see if they'll appear on Zoom, because I can actually have them and you'll be able to see them on the telly. It was a bit difficult with Kieran yesterday because it was a sort of last minute thing. He's like, "Do you want to talk on my show?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'm driving." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, we'll sort something out." But one thing that me and Kieran have discussed, which you mentioned briefly yesterday, is doing a show on New Year's Eve to show what the state of Calais is going to be like, because he's actually going to be in Calais. So we might have some live footage coming from Kieran's phone all the way to you to show you what absolute carnage there is at the ports in the port coming into the UK from Calais on December the 31st, the day before the end of the transition period. Oh, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for sending your messages. You honestly keep me sane. And until next time, I'm just going to say thank you. Hello, good evening, welcome.